Testing, check, check, 1, 2, 3. Alright, welcome to the Ninja Robot Studio LLC stream, where I play video games and VR experiences, and I talk through them from a UX designer's perspective. Game development has a heavy and direct influence on XR development, so it makes sense that we would study game design to give us a greater understanding of how to design quality immersive experiences. The plan is to have all of you in chat participate, and that way we can learn together. There are a lot of classes out there on foundational UX design in general and the UX processes in general, and more classes are coming out around designing for XR. Think of this as a kind of an unofficial and a less academic and a less expensive university labs class for UX for XR. We're going to use critical thinking in our design analysis, and my goal is to help you to gain experience in this process as you participate in the chat. And if you check out the widgets on my Twitch page under the About section, you'll see a section called Rose, Thorn, Bud, and we'll be using this method each session to think through the games I play. And it is experimental, and I'll learn and iterate on this format as I go, and as you guys give me feedback. And for those people watching this later on demand on YouTube, I'm going to go ahead and show you what I mean on the website. Let me switch views real quick to that. Okay, if you go to the About section on my Twitch channel, scroll down, you'll see a bunch of widgets with information, and on there you'll see the rose thorn bud method, and this is the quick and simple method that I use when I just need to think through something without having to go into an in-depth heuristic evaluation on it. Those take a lot of time and effort, and so I don't do them unless there's a actual project for it. And also you'll find widgets on, you can get all my video on demand later on YouTube, and the commands that you can use in the chat. And to learn more, I've got a reading list here of books I recommend. One of the ones that we'll be talking the most about today, besides the UX for XR toolkit, which is what I've written, and you can access that for free, we're going to be talking about the gamer's brain quite a bit. And that, since we're talking specifically about game design in this stream, we'll be referring to it quite a bit. And then the VR book is one specifically for VR. There's some overlap in the two books, Gamer's Brain and VR book, but VR book goes much more in depth on the neurosciences and so forth, and it's a lot more of the academic side of things. So I recommend both of them, but if you have to pick one, I would say the Gamer's Brain. And today we are going to be playing Voice of Cards, the Isle Dragon Roars. And we're just going to do the demo because, again, games cost money and there needs to be a budget for that. So before we actually play the game, though, I do want to go through some of the foundational game design pillars, UX design pillars. Let me do that real quick. I will get better at this as we go and as y'all give me feedback again. So let's talk about the Gamer's Brain real quick. There are some foundational pillars for UX for game design, and I just want to quickly go through those. There are 7 pillars. Game design's a little bit different than 2D apps and so forth, because there are different things that motivate people to use them. Whereas apps, you're trying to do something. Games are mostly for entertainment, unless you're talking about serious games and games that are for training or for teaching consequences. And as far as my personal experience, I've mostly been on the side of serious games where you're training people to do something and teaching them consequences about that. That's more my experience. So normal gaming for just entertainment, I haven't done that, and so that's one of the reasons that I started this Twitch stream, is so that I can learn and I can study with you guys too, using the Gamer's Brain as a kind of a textbook to learn more about the entertainment gaming side of things. And there is actually a lot of overlap between the serious games and the entertainment games, so that gives a heads up to anyone who's actually done serious games. And yeah, I forgot what I was going to say, but let's go through the 7 pillars of usability. So there are pillars of usability and pillars of engageability. So the 7 pillars of usability are signs and feedback, clarity, form following function, consistency, minimum workload, error prevention and recovery, and flexibility. And these are very similar to the foundational heuristics that Nielsen Norman group came up with a long time ago. And they are just told, and she explains it in the book, they are told in a more normal language kind of way. Developers don't speak UX speak. So you have to speak their language, and so we're using normal, more clear words that are not the academic words we learn when we go to college for this or we study this on our own. So, and we're going to speak the game design language more so. So in game usability, 7 main pillars, starting with signs and feedback. It's like this is going to be all of the visual, audio, and haptic cues that inform about what's going on in the game. For example, that is your informative signs. And then, or that encourage players to execute a specific action, like your inviting signs, and those would be like quest signs and so forth that go over the NPCs' heads and so forth. Those kinds of signs that give clear feedback, gives clear reaction of the system to the player's actions, and then all of the features and the possible interaction in a game should have signs and feedback associated with them because they guide players throughout their experiences. And the next pillar is clarity, and that includes typography, color contrast, font usage, hierarchy, UI design. All of your signs and feedback should be perceptible and clear to avoid player confusion, and they should be perceptible but not intrusive to your gameplay. So they shouldn't be getting in the way of what you're trying to do in the actual game. They should be helping, not hurting. The clarity also enables you to quickly prioritize information, because there's a lot of information going on in a game at once. You want to make sure that you can quickly prioritize that information and see what is currently relevant and what's not currently relevant while you're playing. That could be the difference between dying in a game and not, so that's very important. And then form follows function. The form of an item, the character, icon, and so forth should accurately convey its function. And so it goes back to designing for affordances. If you know what affordances are how something is designed so that it intuitively says what you can do with it. For example, a chair affords sitting, so you know by looking at it that you can sit in a chair, hopefully. Doorknob affords turning, so that is what affordances means. You look at something and you know how to use it, you know what it does. And consistency is all of the signs and the feedback controls, the interface, the menu navigation, the world rules, and the overall conventions in a video game should be consistent. They should follow similar consistencies in the player expectations. For example, gamers have certain mental models. Something glows, that means you interact with it. For example, if you're in different regions, there are regional controls that matter. Like, for example, on the PlayStation, you've got your X and your O. Those always mean something, regardless of what game it is. The others do too, but mostly the X and the O really mean something. So the O, but depending on region, they're opposite. So in the United States, the O means back and the X means select, but in Japan, it's switched. So the O is select and the X is back. So there are certain mental models that you need to know regarding, or that gamers expect, and that just makes it, that gets the interface and the interactions out of the way of them actually being able to play the game. And for minimum workload, is another pillar, minimum workload. The player's cognitive load and their physical load should be minimized, as long as it's, not part of the actual game challenge. So cognitive load is your attention and your memory. So players should be able to focus on your game mechanics or your features and your content, and not so much on the interface and the controls, unless that's the game challenge. And same thing with the physical load, the number of clicks, the number of how much effort it takes to do something. Button clicks, the interface, the interactions should not be cumbersome. They should not be overly complicated unless, again, that's part of the game mechanic. Those things should be taken into account and minimized for the tasks that are not part of the core experience of the game, especially during the onboarding part of the game. The onboarding is when you're teaching them how to first, and we'll go through that in a second, teaching them how to use it to begin with. And again, unless that's part of a challenge. For example, Final Fantasy has a boss mechanic where the boss casts a condition called Confuse on you. And when you're confused, your controllers don't work the way they should. That's part of the game mechanic. Whereas if you're just playing the game normally and you don't have the confuse condition on you, your controllers should act exactly how you expect them to. That's what we're talking about, is game mechanic versus just interacting with the game. And then for error prevention and recovery, this is also something that's normal to UX design. You should anticipate what errors the players could make and then prevent them from happening in the first place for tasks that are not, again, part of the game mechanic. Allow for error recovery also whenever possible. For example, don't let them leave the game without saving. You should prompt them and say, do you want to save? Or if you leave during this part of the game, you're not going to be able to save and you're not going to recover your progress. So you would want to warn them and then let them cancel out and do what they need to do, or continue if they want to continue. And flexibility is more about the customizability of the game. So the more customizable the game is, the better in terms of mapping, font size, colors, control mapping, so which controller buttons do what, and so forth. That is going to make it more accessible for more people. For example, people with disabilities, they need to be able to customize their controllers because they may not be able to use their hands the way that people with normal functioning hands can use them, or they may need to use special controllers that hook up to the game. You want to give them the option to do that because you don't want to alienate an entire demographic because you're not allowing flexibility in your game. Color blindness, you want them to be able to adjust contrast, sound settings. People with sensitivity to sounds or people with lower hearing, you're going to want to be able to adjust your sound settings in game. For example, the background sounds may be too loud to understand what people are saying, so you're going to want to have people with lower hearing are going to have more of a problem with that than people with normal, healthy hearing. So you want them to have the ability to adjust those things. Difficulty levels as well, language as well. You want to have options, if at all possible, in these things. And difficulty level, I like the different people have, for example, well, you've also got people with mental cognitive issues that will need to play on a lower difficulty level than, like people with brain injury, for example, may need a lower difficulty level than people who, they're hardcore gamers who really want it to do or die. So you want that flexibility. And there are many people out there who just prefer to just enjoy the story and enjoy the gameplay, but still have a challenge. So you want to have that flexibility for people. And then there are another thing that is different from normal heuristics for applications and software design would be engageability. And there are Celia Hodent, who wrote The Gamer's Brain, mentions 3 pillars of engageability for game design. And those are motivation, emotion, and game flow. Motivation is where you have the aim to satisfy the player's need for competence, autonomy, and relatedness or intrinsic motivation. So focus on the meaning, the sense of purpose, the value, the impact, for anything the players need to do or to have to learn. To offer meaningful rewards and account for individual needs and implicit motives. And emotion is where you polish the game feel, the controls, the camera, the character, the sound, the physical reality, all of those things working together, enabling surprise, discovery, things like that. And then game flow implies accounting for the level of the challenge, the difficulty curve, and the amount of pressure or pacing. And it requires distributed learning by doing, so there's going to be a learning curve involved in learning how to play the game. and preferentially through level design. And level design is preferably you're learning as you go and learning things as you need them, instead of just throwing an onboarding up front. Here's how to do everything in the game. Okay, I hope you remember it. You want to pace that out. And that framework you can use, and you can learn more about it in her book, The Gamer's Brain, Celia Hodent. The link is in Twitch, and I will try to remember to always put it in the show notes for YouTube if you're watching this on demand later as well. So about the game, let's go back to the game. This game that we're playing, Isle of Dragon Roars, is Voice of Cards. The Isle of Dragon Roars is made by Square Enix. They have a lot of awesome games out there. Again, this is just the demo to see if it's great to have demos, because then you can play them and see if it's something you actually want to play later. The Isle of Dragon Roars is an RPG, which means role-playing game, that's set in a world of swords and sorcery, told entirely through the medium of cards. The story follows a self-proclaimed hero as they set off to slay a recently awakened dragon, presented in the manner of a tabletop RPG, playing out through narration from a game master. And this is, they're just giving credit for who made it. It's a nostalgic gaming experience from Yoko Taro, Keiichi Okabe, Kimihiko Fujisaka. And again, this is just the demo, so they're not gonna be able to play through the entire thing this time. Let's get started on the game. This isn't just going to be your normal playthrough. I am going to be talking through this and doing what I normally do when I play a game to analyze it, because it comes kind of naturally to me now. So you're not going to get a normal flow that you would if you were just going to sit here and play the game. It's going to be a lot of stopping and talking and thinking. I'm going to try to think out loud, and I am an introvert, so thinking out loud is not natural to me, but I will try. I will think about this from assuming that I'm the person testing it. In a usability test, I need to think out loud, so I need to do what I'm always asking everyone else to do. So this is Voice of Cards. I have it running on the PC through Steam, and to start off, the music is very chill. I like the music. It's compelling. It makes me want to see more, but it's a nice and relaxing music that you don't get tired of hearing. It's not something that you would hate getting stuck in your head, at least in my opinion. So that's a good start. And the game is entirely made of cards, which is really intriguing. And if you listen as I scroll through the different cards, you can hear sound effect, and that is something that is very important to game design, is the sound. The details of the sound really matter, and getting them right is going to help build that environment for you, and help with that immersion and that believability. It's very important in 2D games, and if you get into XR, which is where we want to ultimately get with this, is how would this translate to XR? It is even that much more important in an XR experience to not break immersion by getting your sounds right. So we are going to, and I like how the interface has cards set up for everything. Even the menus are cards. And the level of detail on the artwork is pretty impressive. I'm using my controller D-pad right now to flip through the menu, and that's another thing I want to do, is test out what all are the different controls that are used here, and whether or not the game is going to teach me those controls. Because that's an important part of onboarding, is teaching you which controls do what. And so I'm going to switch to my keyboard and try the arrow keys. Those don't do anything. I'm going to try the WASD keys on my keyboard, and that is working. D is going right and A is going left. Just like the WASD keys are how you would walk in a game if you're playing on the keyboard versus the controller. So that would be, I would expect either the arrows or the WASD keys to do that. And then with the mouse, can you see my mouse? Yes. You can just click on it and it will do the same thing if you're a mouse player. And I like that there is a sound effect of a card deck shuffling. Very nice. Load screen.
こんにちは。いや、こんばんはですかね。私は本作のゲームマスターです。以後、お見知りおきを。さて、では本題。私の仕事は、おしゃべりとカードで、あなたをこの世界に誘うことです。なので、私の声が聞きやすいよう、音を出してプレイしてもらえると、より楽しめるかなと思います。というか、音出しプレイが絶対おすすめ。なんですが、今のように字幕も表示されるので、音を出せない方は文字でお楽しみください。そろそろ準備はいいですか？では、始めましょう。ボイスオブカードの世界へようこそ。
So that's something I forgot to mention is I prefer to play everything in Japanese with English subtitles for multiple reasons. First reason being that I can't stand the English voice actors. They just don't sound as good to me in most games, so I've just automatically switched to Japanese because I'm a geek and I love anime and I prefer Japanese. And I'm trying to learn it anyway, so what a great way to practice. But then on the other hand, it's also very good to switch languages. And if I were really brave, I would switch the words to Japanese too. That way I could test whether or not, besides just trying to teach myself the language, I could teach myself whether or not the interface is intuitive enough that someone who doesn't know the language can still figure things out. So I have done that before on normal apps on the iPhone and the iPad, and that tells you whether or not something is a really good design, is if you can still get through it even though you don't understand the language, which is something that does happen for people who are speaking something as a second language, but the app's only available in one language because you don't have your language options. So if you're brave enough to test that, go ahead and do it. But one thing that I did not like about the beginning was that it doesn't let you, it's just auto progressing through it. One thing that you do want, so here it gave me the opportunity to stop, which is good. I prefer, and it is a good practice, to have it to where you can control whether or not it auto progresses or not. Some people prefer it to do that, just so you can multitask or you can just get on with the game. But other people like the ability to stop and read and concentrate because, again, you've got different needs. You've got people who real life happens and you're going to have to stop playing at some point and you don't want to miss anything. You're going to need a way to stop and pause at any moment if something in real life happens. So that's one reason you would want to give them the option to progress manually versus auto progress. Depending on their preferences. And another reason is that there could be any number of reasons people need to stop. If someone has an injury or a cognitive impairment, they're going to need to take more time to read and understand what's going on than someone who's generally healthy and uninjured. So that's something else that you want to not normalize everyone into all of our players are healthy and don't have any issues whatsoever with life and they can just sit down and play games for as long as they want. That's not life. That's not how it is in real life. Not all gamers are teenagers that, I mean, even teenagers, their parents make them stop and go do things. So you've got to learn more about your target audience. You've got to understand your users better to know how to design games for that target audience. But one of the general best practices is to let them be able to stop and restart the game whenever they need to. Pick up where they left off without missing anything. And I am trying to click the X button, but I forgot that this is a Japanese game that was generally only released in Japan. So I'm going to switch and try the regional next button. That's one thing on here for the controller is that it seems to be using a different controller convention, which is, it might be an Xbox. I'd never played with the Xbox, so I don't know what the controllers are on there. But this is a Sony controller, with PlayStation controller, which uses the shapes instead of the letters. Which, now that I think about it, is pretty brilliant since it's not language specific. So before I do that, though, I'm going to unplug the controller and see if the tooltips change. Yes, it changed to a mouse. So now it's telling me to left click, normal click with a mouse to go next. So I'm going to plug my controller back in. And there, now it's picking it up. So that is another thing that you want to see with games. Are they designed to be platform specific? Do they give you good onboarding instructions detecting which controller you're using so that you're not giving them the wrong onboarding? And this was my main pet peeve with the controller here, is that it's showing the wrong controller. So can you detect which controller it's using? If so, try to give them the appropriate controller button. Would not be B here, it would be the 0 in this case, the O. And again, the A on the controller, I don't have an A, I have shapes. So but regionally, knowing that the X is the back button, I can translate. That is where cognitive load comes in. So that is an unnecessary amount of cognitive load on me because I'm having to think about it and translate. It's not huge, but it might be for someone who doesn't know that there's differences in the regionals because they didn't do what I did and buy a PS Vita directly from Japan instead of here in America, so that I could try a different region. Not everyone's like that, so they're not all gonna know. And not everyone is a gamer, a heavy gamer. You've got different levels of gaming, so you're gonna want to account for all of those, because you've got beginner gamers. They may become heavy gamers in the future, but if you don't give them a chance to learn, they're not going to. So if you want to bring them into the fold of heavy gamers, they've got to start somewhere. Okay. You are about to take the first steps of your adventure.
剣と魔法の世界で人間にあだなす魔物を倒しながら大いなる目的を果たすべく旅をするのだ。
And you also notice that I really like, you can hear the sound effects of a card being pulled from a deck, and then one thing I don't remember hearing is the sound effect of it falling. Right, I'm not hearing it fall on the deck of cards. I hear it being pulled, but I don't hear it falling. So that's one thing. I do have some cards, and I'm going to test that sound real quick. This is the level of detail I go into when I'm testing, when I'm looking at games to see what they do and what they don't do. Is there a sound effect for everything? Because sound really matters, especially in XR. If you're wanting immersion and realism, you want to think about, there's so much detail that goes into game design. It's incredible. So I've got cards here from my D&D starter kit. And I don't know if you can hear it. I'm going to try to get it close to the mic. So you can hear the card being pulled, but you probably won't be able to hear it fall on the table. I don't think you heard that. No, the mic didn't pick it up, but there is a distinct sound when it falls on the table. So you do want to think about those details. I think they probably weighed pros and cons of how much level of detail and effort they went. You know, there's always budget, there's always time, there's always things to consider, and that was probably the very lowest thing on the totem pole of things to accomplish for the game. The game is beautiful so far, so I won't hold it against them. But that is something that you want to keep in mind when you're designing games. And also you notice that there's some text in red. It's a completely different color, and that is a common design pattern that you will see across games for keywords or key actions that you need to remember.
君がこの世界で活躍することを心の底から期待せずにはいられない。
So here I'm going to use my D-pad on my controller. That's the D-pad is this section of the controller to scroll through these. And I'll also try my keyboard WASD keys. That's what you're using here to scroll through those. The arrow keys don't work here. I'm going to be polite. And I accidentally hit the back button because I'm thinking American instead of Japanese.
私は君の冒険を眺めることしかできない傍観者だ。では、そろそろ冒険に出発してもらうとしよう。旅の無事を祈っている。
Beautiful scene. I like the table. I love wood tables. I like the sound effects of all the cars flipping over.
ここは始まりの城。この王国を治める女王バニラが住まう場所だ。
This is Castle Advent. Queen Nilla reigns over the kingdom from within its walls.
女王から召集を受け、白い服を身にまとった3人の冒険者が登場していた。
And you also see the level of detail on these cards is quite exquisite. Artwork, they put a lot of care into this entire design.
白の教団より参られた冒険者たちよ、前へ。
So Ivory Order is in red or in a different color. It's in a different font treatment. So that's something that they're wanting us to remember. Your piece is in the middle of the screen. Use the left stick to move in the direction you want. So it's detecting my controller, so it's telling me to use the left stick. I'm gonna detach my controller again real quick to see what it says. Or a keyboard. So it changed the... I wonder if I would have to go back. I probably waited too long. So the card isn't going to change. The key card isn't going to change. But the next button did. It changed to a mouse. But, so let me try arrows. Oh, I have to hit next before I can try anything. Okay. And I'm also using the keyboard return. I did that intuitively. I guess that is a mental model I have in my brain from somewhere, I don't know where, saying hit enter to progress. I couldn't tell you where I got it. As you continue on your journey, your objective will change. Press the E key. So it's telling me E key because I've got my controller detached right now. Press the E key whenever you need a reminder of what to do next. And so this is one thing I apologize for, is that I keep detaching controllers to see what's going to happen. If you're normally playing the game, you wouldn't do that. So your onboarding experience is going to be a lot better than what you're getting right now because I keep changing things up. You will see cards with glowing edges on your adventure. Step on one to trigger an event that will move the story along. So that's another thing. They're using that mental model of things that glow to tell you this is something you want to interact with. Okay, so I've got the keyboard. I'm using the keyboard right now. So I'm going to try the arrows to see what they do. They're making a card glow. And I don't know why the cards glow right now. So I'll use the WASD keys, which are your movement keys on the keyboard play. And they behave exactly the way you would expect them to. They're moving one card forward or backwards. And then mouse. Yeah, so you can just click on a card to go to it. And with the controller, these are things that you want to keep, again, reminder, these are things that you want to keep in mind and study and design for when you're creating games that are cross-platform or have multiple options. For example, right now, I'm just playing on the computer, but I still have all these options for how to play the game, as I prefer controllers because I started on a console, a PlayStation, a PS4 console, and I've always done consoles. And keyboard play is difficult for me, so I prefer controller, so I'm always going to have one hooked up to my PC. Some games I might prefer a keyboard, like this one. This is a chill game. It doesn't require a lot of heavy action, so a keyboard might be fine because I might get tired of holding the controller if it's just a chill, relaxing game like this one. So I might prefer to switch to keyboard. And it's telling me why for the next objective reminder, but I don't have a Y. Again, they're the shapes, so I'm going to make a guess, because this is the only controller I have. I'm just going to make a guess that it might be the triangle. And I'm going to push the triangle, and yes, that was correct. And back, I have to remind myself, Japanese regional, because again, this was originally made as a Japanese game. I guess that's something to think about. They didn't make that translation of, I guess it would be easier if I had that controller, but I don't. So I have to make that mental translation, that a two-step translation. So first of all, I'm translating from, I'm assuming, an Xbox controller, which is strange because Sony is Japanese, and you would think that they would go Sony first, but I guess not. Unless it's a Nintendo, maybe it's a Nintendo. I don't remember what the Nintendo controllers are like. I have a Switch Lite, but it's nowhere near me. So first of all, I'm having to translate controllers, and then I'm having to translate regional. So I'm having to translate that this is a Sony controller, so my letters are now shapes, and now I have to also make the translation that regional, the X and the 0 are switched. So I have to go with the Japanese region for my back, which is opposite of North America. So that's what we're talking about with cognitive load. and it said to use the left stick to move, and that works, and the right stick is making the things glow, and they're not making clear what that does right now. If I select one, we'll see what happens. You jump right to that card. Okay. But we're just gonna go with what it's telling us to do right now.
女王は玉座から冒険者たちを見下ろし、そなたらが教団の使いかと尋ねた。三人組の中から最も若そうな女が前に出る。
I think
い
she's
かに
missing
も
a
育ち
shirt.
の良さそうな顔つきだ。
Always something entertaining about video games is the difference in wardrobes for men and women.
女は自身のことを白の教団の白羽と名乗った。三人組のリーダーを務めているという。白羽は女王バニラに一礼すると、連れている二人の男に目配せした。
So they're kind of animating the cards to add a little interest. That's cool. And just pay attention to the intricacy of the designs on the cards. It's the time they spent on this thing.
目配せに反応したいかつい風貌の男は軽く頭を下げ、ブランと名乗る。ぶっきらぼうな態度だ。一方の老人は礼儀作法のお手本を示すかのような振る舞いで丁寧に白磁と名乗った。この三人組こそが今回の物語の主人公である。つまりあなたのパーティーというわけです。
Oh, just a note. So since you can't see what I'm doing, this is not auto progressing. I'm hitting next for everything.
女王は君たちの挨拶に軽くうなずくと、召集をかけた理由を静かに語り始めた。王家の宝が何者かに盗まれた。そなたらに奪い返してもらいたい。本来であれば兵を出して捜索するのだが、近頃魔物たちの動きが活発でな、人手を避けないのだ。困り果てた女王は民からの信頼も厚く、武芸にも秀でた白の教団を頼るしかないと考えたようだ。女王陛下直々のご指名、光栄の至りと、君たちは受任の意を示した。しかし、君たちは犯人の手がかりを何も持っていない。まずは女王から情報を聞き出すことにした。
And I'm using my D-pad on my controller to shuffle through the cards. I did have to hit the down button on the D-pad to select them before they started responding. I don't know if I had to do that, but that's what I did.
君たちは王家の宝とは一体何なのかを女王に尋ねた。
Again, I have to keep reminding myself which button to push for
王家
region.
の宝とは小さな瓶に入った液体状のものだという。女王は国家存亡の危機のような悲壮感で、あれがないとつぶやいた。 君たちは女王に犯人に心当たりはないか尋ねた。女王は次の町に目撃者がいるようだと教えてくれた。普通の冒険者なら当然のように報酬を要求するのだろうが、見返りを求めることは白の教団の教義に反するため、君たちは押し黙っている。
I was gonna skip that one, but I didn't feel like it gave me the option to skip that one. Maybe it did and I missed it.
すると女王から先に報酬は望みのままにと言われてしまった。
But I guess they did it that way so you learn more about how the Ivory Order works.
王家の宝とはそれほど重要なものらしい。さあ、早く行くがよい。朗報を待っている。君たちは女王に一礼すると城を後にした。
Press the menu button to open the menu. There you can perform various actions such as saving and changing skills or equipment. The cards you encounter on your journey will be added to your collection, which can also be found from the menu screen. Please give it a look from time to time. Okay. I'm going to right click. Okay, I can zoom in and out with my mouse wheel. I'm right clicking and dragging to see if I can pan. I cannot. Left clicking and dragging. I can pan. I tried right click first because I'm used to design tools that let you do that, and that was interesting. I guess when you left click on a card, you move there. So it's keeping me from going. That's pretty clever. I like that it does that. And assuming you can't skip across water, right? Okay.
「早く宝を探さなければ」。白羽は足早にまっすぐ町を目指して進んでいた。ブランが「待て」と白羽の前に躍り出る。君たちの前に魔物が現れた。我らの行く手を阻むつもりかと白磁は魔物を睨みつける。
That's actually a pretty cute monster.
魔物は問答無用でこちらに襲いかかってきた。
Kinda don't want to kill it.
蹴散らしましょう。
So now we're getting into contextual onboarding. So that's good that it's not teaching you all of this stuff up front, so you have to remember it. It's teaching you as you go, which is a good approach. This is actually one of the best, in my opinion, best approaches of doing it, teaching you as you go. Okay, D-pad scrolls through them. I'm just going to deal some damage. So this is one of the mental models also that was mentioned earlier in the pillars of usability for game design, is that this mental model of the cards, you've got the numbers on them. So it looks like I'm assuming, because I've played a little bit of Magic the Gathering before, and I tried out another one called Shadowverse, which is another Japanese game. They all seem to have these numbers on them. So 8, you can see there's crossed swords behind it. That I'm guessing is the attack, and then the 12 is the number of current HP, and the max, the slash, is the max HP, and then the 4 looks like it's the defense. So you have to hit, it looks like you have to hit higher than that number. I'm not sure completely about that one. It looks like you have to hit higher than that number, or your attack has to be higher than that number to hit. That's how a lot of games like this work. And D-pad will let me choose which one I attack. I'm just gonna attack the one in front of me, and I really don't want to attack that little furry thing, because it's cute. So the number in red indicates HP, and when a card's HP drops to 0, it becomes incapacitated. So that's like a lot of games, and it's like Dungeons and Dragons as well, which I play. So that gets back to your mental models. So the card's attack is indicated in its lower left, and defense is in its lower right. Give careful consideration to your and your opponent's values before acting. Okay. I am going to attack. I feel bad. I don't want to attack the little furry thing. Attack the little furry thing. And I just found out that it's weak to fire. That does it for battle basics. The rest is up to you. Play your hand wisely. Gave itself a buff. Add the value of the roll to the attack and deal bolt damage. So if my attack is 12, so I'm gonna have 12 plus whatever I roll on something. And I will try that one. So it looks like that's costing me 1 crystal. And roll with the B button to calculate damage, and I don't remember which one's the B. It's the next. Okay.
白羽はふうと一息つきながら戦いで乱れた服を直している。ブランは疲れた様子も見せず、武器に付着した魔物の血を黙々と拭っていた。すると魔物のムクロを見聞していた白磁が、女王に聞いた話は確かなようだと神妙な顔でつぶやいた。白磁の言葉に白羽も真剣な表情でうなずく。宝が奪われた理由と魔物たちの動き、何か関係があるのかもしれない。まずは次の町へ行き、情報を仕入れなければ。君たちは再び歩き出した。
And they've taken a moment to remind us what our next objective is, without us having to look it up. That's nice. I'm just moving back and forth to see if anything happens. I really like that. It gives you a sound effect and a little animation, and then takes you back where you were. That's a very clear indicator that you can't go there. That is a good way of adding constraints to a game to keep people on course, and to let them know what they can and can't do in the game. And the card I've next in is glowing. That's where we want to go. I accidentally hit. Again, regional, I accidentally hit the wrong button because I'm thinking American. select versus Japanese select. Lucky for you, there are all sorts of establishments in town to support you on your adventure. Would you care to have them explained? Yes. This is the inn. Rest here to recover your party's HP. This is the apothecary. Here you can purchase items to restore your party's HP, cure their status elements, and more. This is the armorer. They sell weapons and armor to give your party an edge in battle. And think again how much detail had to be put into designing this game. This is making me think about information architecture and how you are planning. There's a whole lot of work that's done up front before you even start designing anything, or what your concept of design is, at least, because design isn't just the drawing of the artwork. It's not just the animations, things like that. There's a lot of forethought that has to go into a game before you even start doing any of that work. Thinking about all of the writing that had to take place, all of the deciding what artwork needed to be done in the first place, storyboarding out the game flow, all of these things that happen before you even start making it. And that's where a lot of people that are coming from a non-project or product background don't understand, is that there is a lot of forework, a lot of pre-work that has to go into it before you actually get into the actual creation of the thing. And you can learn a lot about that. There's a lot of classes out there. Again, that's not fully what I'm covering here. You can learn more about that on my website, which you can find in the Twitch notes, or you can also learn more about it. Again, I highly recommend the book, The Gamer's Brain by Celia Hoden. That link is also in the notes and Twitch, and then I will include it in the notes on YouTube for those that are watching this later or on demand as well. This is the item shop. They stock handy items to use on your journey. And this is the game parlor. Come here to play some card games when you need a break from your travels. And that is kind of funny that they have a card game within a card game. That's kind of meta. And that about sums it up. These establishments are here to help you, so don't be a stranger. And one of the things that I'm wondering about here is that the whole premise of this is that you're playing a card game with a game master. I'm wondering, first of all, it's like, would this even be possible to do in the physical world? It would take so much pre-work to lay out all the cards. More so than just, maybe more so, I don't know if it's about the same amount of work or not as playing a game of Dungeons and Dragons and setting up the maps and so forth. Maybe it's could be about the same effort, I'm not sure. Maybe a little more because the cards are easily moved and so forth. But that is another question for things that you're creating in digitally versus in real life versus in XR is, can it be, is this going to make it better? Is this going to make it more enjoyable if it's digital? What are the benefits of making it digital versus physical? What are the benefits of making it in XR versus 2D? Think about those things. Ask yourself, so what are the whys behind what it is that you're creating? Can this be randomized? Is this randomized in this game, or is it always the same? If I came back later and played this again, are these cards going to be in exactly the same place they are this time? Is there going to be some kind of variety? That's another question that I have. is it randomized in any way? So I'm supposed to speak to the inhabitants of Next End to gather information on the thief who stole the treasure. Okay.
店に行くと店主がご用件はと尋ねてきた。
Since it's right there, check it out. Okay. So using the D-pad to scroll through the cards. Okay, and it's highlighting who can use it whenever I scroll over one. And there's some things changing on the cards too. So it's looks like, so it's saying this is your current gear, so that's nice. It's telling me that this is what they currently have, so why would I waste my money buying it again? It's good to know. And then Mercenary Sword, that is highlighting, and I like how they're doing that. They're making a soft glow. Can you see my mouse? Yeah, they're making a soft glow around the attack stat, which is saying this is going to raise the attack to 15, which is nice. It's giving you a +6. So that's something. Oh, okay, so in comparison to the one that they already have, which is a +3. So his attack without a sword is -3. 12 -3. Okay. So the base number is not 12. The base number is 9. So 9 + 6 is 15. Okay. So that means that will raise, and I have... So this is useful, relevant information to have here, is that I own 4 items out of, I can keep 30. I don't own any gear, but I can get 100. And I have 542G, whatever this is. In the Square Enix universe, I've played multiple Square Enix games, and that seems to always be the currency, which I'm guessing is gil. I'm not sure, but that's their currency. G. Sacred Staff is already equipped by both of them. And that's already equipped by him. But we could raise his defense if we got him the breastplate. I just hit next on, I just hit the right arrow button on the D-pad and it brought me to more stuff. Because you can see there's a pile of cards in the corner over here. And that's just what I'm seeing. And I was guessing that meant next, that there was more. I just gave it a try. And so they are currently in this gear, which looks significantly different on the male versus the female. Ring of Protection. So that would give them both a defense. So again, I have 200. And my guess is, so she's the healer. And in other games that I play, like Final Fantasy XIV, they always go after the healer first. And the magical users always have a lower defense than the physical attackers. So I would want to defend these people up more first, because I don't see any options for upping their attack, because the only staff here is what they already have. So I would want to raise their protection first, because he's pretty strong already. But out of these two, she doesn't have a whole lot of attack power, but she has heals. So I'm going to assume she's the healer. I'm going to buy one. I don't have a ton of money right now. So I'm going to hit the... How do I select it? Okay. I hit the next button, or the back button, that was a little bit off, so they could have had a you select it this way tooltip. All they had was back, which is kind of misleading. So buy the protection ring, that'll be 200 gil. I'm guessing that's gil because Square Enix. You can buy it, or you can buy it and equip. I'm gonna go ahead and equip it, because why not? And I need to pick who. I'm gonna give it to her. That leaves me with 342. Do I want to get another one right now? Do I want to get him a better sword right now, or do I want to wait? I don't know what we're going to be fighting, but I'm also guessing we might get gear and treasure if we get treasure, if this game does treasure. I'm going to also want to see... Okay, so what do I actually have in my inventory? Do I have healing potions, things like that? Let's see. I'm gonna leave for a minute. I'll talk to you in a bit. Weapon, armor, and accessory cards are only effective once you've equipped them to your characters. Open the menu and select equipment to make sure your party is ready for battle. Oh. Ah. Menu. And how do I... See, this is where it starts falling apart. Hitting options on my card because again, this is a different controller. I had to guess which button to use. And on the PlayStation, it's the options button. And this part's confusing. I know it mentioned it earlier. Collection versus owned cards. So what's the difference here? What's the difference in setup versus owned cards versus skills or versus collection? So I guess this is telling me what her current skills are, and I guess this is where I would be able to add any new skills once I get more skill cards. I'm assuming there's some kind of limit to how many you can have at once. That's usually how it goes. Abilities. Okay, and there's a difference in skills and abilities. But I don't know when you can use those versus when you can't. And this is what's currently equipped, so that's in setup. He doesn't have a... I guess you can have one accessory, because they both have one empty slot. At least for now. I don't know if that'll change in the future, but it looks like that's all you can do is one weapon, one armor, and one accessory. Just keeps it simple. Imagine having to handle all those cards and doing all that math if this were a physical game. And there's a party setup, which means we might be getting more party people in the future. Okay, I didn't mean to leave the menu. I just meant to go back to the main options. Owned cards. I just hit back and it just took me all the way out instead of back to the... Okay, so instead of hitting back to get back to the main menu items at the top, I'm using the D-pad to go up and down on the submenus and back and right and left to go across the main menu options instead of hitting the back button, because the back button just takes you all the way out. That was a little bit not what I expected. I'm assuming if I were playing this with a mouse, it would be different, because I would just click on what I wanted to go to. I can save. Do that. Okay. I am an OCD saver. Okay, so what's the difference in owned cards? This is what I have. I already have some salves and a Inspirelixir, which revives the target. I guess I don't have any extra equipment that's not equipped. I guess that's what that means. And then in my collection, oh, okay, these are things I've unlocked. But I don't know when I would use those, unless that was an option during battle. Can you use them out of battle? Just accidentally hit back. Guess not. Don't have any key items, right? Oh, I do. I have a... To be transparent, I did try this game earlier as I wanted to walk through it before I did the stream. So I do have some key items that I wouldn't have. Oh, and accidentally left the menu again. So I have some key items that I wouldn't have at the beginning normally. So, and I keep hitting back. So I'm going to switch to mouse and keyboard because I keep doing the wrong thing on controller. I'm going to unhook the controller. That's what I'm saying about, again, about mental models, about regions, about cognitive load, is try to keep the interface from interfering with what it is they're trying to do in the game. Your interface, your interactions should not hinder gameplay. Yeah, you want it to be challenging, but you want the actual game to be what's the challenge, not the interactions with the game. And it's not... Again, this was originally made for Japan, but that was an extra thought that should have happened when switching to America, North America, or anything outside of the Asian region. I don't know, because I keep saying Japan because I don't know about China and how their controllers work. I know about Japan because I bought a Japanese PS Vita, that regional PS Vita, so I know because of that the buttons are switched, that's how it is in Japan. But I'm only saying Japan because I don't know about the other Asian places. If you do know, you can make a comment on let me know, because I'd love to know if that's the case for all Asian regions or if it's just Japan that's that way. So switching to mouse and keyboard, because I'm tired of doing all of the accidental clicks, because the regional... So first of all, it's regional translation of the back and the forward buttons are opposite on the Sony for North America versus Japan. The X and the O are opposite. And then the tooltips are saying A, B, Y, C, which aren't on the Sony controller. Sony controller uses shapes. So it's only got controller tooltips for one type of controller, which is not the controller that I have. So that's something to keep in mind when you're creating games, is you want to take into account those things so that you can make a more enjoyable game for your players. It's not everyone's going to have all of the different types of controllers. I only have the Sony because I have a PlayStation, and so I use my PlayStation controller for games that I play on my PC. I don't have an Xbox. I don't want to go out and buy an Xbox controller when I have a perfectly good Sony controller. So those are things, again, you want to think about the different types of controllers that people have. And if you have the time and the budget and so forth to include that, then do it. Because now that I'm thinking about it, Sony does have they have an SDK, and I've looked into it because of the PlayStation VR. The problem is that to get in on the Sony SDK is quite a huge sum. It's a big sum. And so if it's not in your budget, you may not even be able to get the SDK to even add the Sony controller to your game. So if it's a lower budget game or a lower budget deployment out to other countries, because this game isn't like your top game in other countries. So this is a more popular game in Japan than it is here, because Japan's really popular. Japan really loves card games. They're much more popular over there than they are here. So that would make sense then, that they don't have the budget to include a Sony controller, because it costs a lot of money to get in on that stuff and test it and approvals. I don't know if it's any different if somebody does know that. If you're doing it for a PC game but just want to add the Sony controller to it when people want to use the controller from the Sony, can they do that without paying an arm and a leg for the SDK? I would assume that Square Enix already has a license for it because they make games specifically for the PlayStation. So I don't know. Those are things I don't know. But it might be a factor. If you know, let me know. So I don't have any accessories. I have potions. I think I have enough potions for now. So I'm going to go ahead. Oh, it yawned because I was sitting there for too long talking, which is funny, because that prompts you to get back to the game. That's cool. But it doesn't force you to get back to the game, and it's not making you lose any progress. You can sit here, it seems, for a while before it starts yawning. But that was cute. I'm going to go ahead and buy the ring for the other dude. His name I forgot. This guy. And that is Edwin. Okay, now I'll leave. But the tooltips for the keyboard and mouse are fine. No problem with those. Okay, now there's some people.
最近魔物が多く、街の外に出るのが
I
怖
love
いと
that she's holding a knife.
女はため息を
Lovely
つい
lady
てい
with a
る。
knife. I'm too scared to leave town with all those monsters out there. Common size. Yeah, hold on to that knife. And I didn't mean to do that. Leave. Just gonna click on that.
ようこそ、ここは次の町だ。と、男は元気よく言った。
Tell us of this place.
君たちが何を聞いても、男はようこそ、 ここはとオウムのように繰り返すばかりだった。
I want to ask him another question.
君たちは王家の宝を盗んだ犯人を知っているかと男ははっとした顔で白羽の耳元に口を近づけると小声で何かを話し始めた。ようこそ。ここは次の町だ。
That's mysterious.
男はこの町で装備を整えたり薬を買ったりするといいと懇切丁寧に教えてくれた。
But I can't ask him any questions. Nope. Okay.
道端にうずくまっている女がいる。
Is identical to the other woman. So I guess there is a limit to how much artwork they did. It is kind of confusing. Because this is making me think, is she a doppelganger? Is this a trick? She's got that big knife.
女は君たちを見て手を貸してほしいと頼んできた。どうも足をくじいてしまったらしく近くの薬屋まで連れて行ってほしいようだ。
Looks like my commands aren't working in the chat. If anyone else is in chat, can you test those? I'm going to test chat rules. Chat commands real quick. Nope, not working. I'm going to have to look into that, why that's not working. She sprained her ankle and needs you to take her to the nearby apothecary.
白羽はすぐさま女のもとへ駆け寄りその体を起き上がらせる。続いてブランが女を背負い君たちは薬屋を探すため歩き始めた。
I'm not thrilled about the auto panning, because that's something that can cause motion sickness if it's done too much. Auto panning and zooming on games like this. Especially something you do not want to do in designing in XR, especially VR. Don't auto pan and zoom because that is one of the main causes of motion sickness. Use the arrow keys to choose the direction you want to jump, then press the enter key. Try jumping to the apothecary. I'm using the arrow keys. And it's highlighting which card.
君たちは薬屋にたどり着いた。女は 薬屋で買った薬を飲むなり、ぴょんぴょん飛び跳ね始めた。
ぴょんぴょん。
白の教団の薬はやっぱり効き目が違うと女はにこやかに言う。女は君たちの方に振り向くと目を丸くして、あなたたちはと驚き、君たちが白の教団の人間であることに今頃気づいたようだ。女は君たちの手を順番に握ると、いつも世話になっているとお礼を言った。白の教団が世界中に薬を供給する慈善団体であることは周知の事実である。白羽は人々の喜ぶ笑顔を見るたびに白の教団の一員として誇らしい気持ちになるのだった。
You fulfilled the necessary requirements and unlocked Mature Woman's Flip Side story. You can read special stories about the characters and enemies among your collected cards. Progress through the adventure and defeat the myriad enemies in your path to collect every special story. So you'll notice here that not everything has a voiceover. Only certain things. So I think that I've noticed so far that the narration of the actual MSQ main story quest is narrated with a voiceover, whereas tips on how to do things are not narrated with a voiceover. And that's something else to think about in game design, is that voiceover work costs a lot of money. However, it is very important to the quality and the immersion of the game to have voiceover. For the most part, depends on your game, but for the most part, in a game like this, voiceover is very valuable to the immersion. And so that's another thing that has to be pre-planned out in the beginning, is what is your script, what is your narration that your voiceover is going to have to do. And I hear a train coming. I apologize for the train. It's probably going to honk right outside my house, so I'll probably have to mute for a moment. I'm checking noise levels. Okay. It's not picking it up. Nice. So you have to think out your narration in advance, so that because there's going to be a lot of iteration on your game, and if you have to change your narration later, it's going to cost money to bring those voice factors back in to make changes. So you want to plan out what they're going to say and when you're going to have the recording done. And I'm sure there's more to it if someone who has more knowledge of the sound design aspect of things, and if you have a comment, feel free to comment. But from my experience, it costs money and it's effort to get the voice overs changed later in the game as you progress and as you make changes. So you want to plan things out, and there's a lot of pre-production work that happens to think things through before you actually start making the game. That's part of where I'm trying to go to, is that it feels like you're not making any progress when you do all this pre-work up front, but this pre-work up front is what helps you save time and money later, because you're planning things out, and instead of just designing and creating and then seeing how it goes. And a lot of people prefer to work that way, but that is a risk that you're going to have to. It's going to cost you more money to do things that way. So there's a process, a pipeline that studios follow to be more efficient and to save money and time and effort on things as they go. Yes, I want to view my collection. Characters. Okay, I've got some characters. She's the queen. No ruler is safe from fear and worry, but Queen Nilla harbors a knot in her gut unrelated to and more personal than the recent rise in monster activity. And I can look forward to the backs of these cards and the whole story in the retail version of the game, because again, I am playing the free demo. And inspect lets me have a very... I can zoom. Inspect the card, that's cool. But exchange cards, what does that mean? Oh, I have an option on cards. Cool, I like that one. Oh, I see. So, I kind of like that they have the cards defaulted to the gray. Because that is a clearer indication of which... here, I'm going to change it back to the gray. That's because that's a clear indication. Ah, it didn't work. Try again. What did I do? Okay. Did that. But it didn't change. Why didn't that change? That's annoying. I don't know why it didn't change. So there's some kind of bug or something I'm missing. I don't know. But so what I was saying was the gray, it makes it clear that this is actually a character that I'm not playing with. It's an NPC that I'm talking to. Whereas these are my player characters. And I would like to keep them a different color, gold versus gray, to help me quickly differentiate which ones are the ones that are actually playable characters versus ones I'm just talking to as NPCs. So that's why I was wanting to change this one back to gray, so that I know. But I don't know why it's not letting me keep it as gray now. So I'm just going to have to remember. That is another one of the best, one of the pillars or usability pillars, good practices, best practices for game design is to clearly differentiate your NPCs from your playable characters, so that there's just clarity in what you can expect from the different characters in the game. That is especially important in VR because, again, it's really immersive, and you're going to want to know who's a person or a playable character versus who's an NPC that you're not going to be able to do a lot with. You have different expectations for behaviors and interactions. So let's see what these stories say. Oh, I picked up some of these when I was trying this before, so I have more cards than I would normally at this stage. We haven't met that one yet, so we have met this one. So he made a promise to the love of his life when they were married. I shall love you till death do us part. 1/2 century later, he has proven to be a man of his word. Isn't that sweet? And full retail version to get the back of it. Okay. And it's reminding me of the next objective, which is really nice. I like that it's regularly reminding me. That's another of the best practices pillars that Celia Hodent mentions in her book, is that you want to help them remember what their objective is. Remind them regularly or give them access to refer to it regularly. So like it has this option down here in the corner to look at your next objective, but it automatically showed it when I got out of the menu and came back into the game, which is nice. Okay, I'm gonna check out the apothecary.
店に行くと店主がご用件を薬屋の店主は君たちを見て、こうして薬屋を営めるのも白の教団のおかげだと礼を述べた。しかもささやかなお礼として好きな薬を持って行っていいと言っている。しかし君たちはちゃんと代金は払うと店主の申し出を断り、早速商品を見せてほしいと頼んだ。
So I already have some stuff. Don't have enough gold. I like that it tells me I don't have enough. Salve. Okay, and I like that it tells me that I already own. I already own some, and so if I don't want to buy any actually, but okay, so clicking on buy more adds one more to it. Okay. I think I already have an antidote. Nope. Okay. Upper. I think I want to get an antidote. Just buy one. Broke. I have an spare elixir. I remember seeing that. Pepper upper. I will buy a pepper upper. That's gonna cure some kind of debuff. And I totally broke now. Okay, we'll stop shopping.
店主は他にご用件はと問いかけてくる。
Okay, let's go to the item shop. Not that I can buy
店に
anything.
行くと店
Let's
主
see
が
what they have.
ご用件はと尋ねてきた。
A bomb. Cool. And a soothstone generates gems. 1,000 gil. I'm guessing it's gil again because of other Square Enix games. Not right
店
now,
主は
miss.
他にご用件はと問いかけてくる。
Okay, let's talk to this person.
男は先日城の方から薬の瓶のようなものを持って町の外へ走り去っていく怪しい人影を見たという。はっきりと顔は見えなかったそうだが、何でも骨と皮しかないような君たちは有益な情報を得られたことに満足し、男に礼を言った。
I like that it keeps the cards flipped until you get to. Till you get to them, it's like a revealing of story instead of you seeing the whole thing at once. That's the end, and that's where we sleep and heal. Okay.
最近この町の周辺に薬ばかりを狙って奪い去っていく魔物が出没するそうだ。噂ではその魔物はいつも西の方に向かって逃げていくらしい。女は君たちを見るなりサインを求めてきた。白の教団の方々が来てくれればもう安心だと。女は安堵の表聞けば、女は町外れで魔物に襲われかけたそうだ。骨だけの姿なのに大事そうに薬の瓶を抱えた妙な魔物だったという。町の人々から得た情報で 王家の宝を盗んだ犯人のことがだいぶ分かってきた。まず女王から王家の宝は小さな瓶に入った液体状のものだと聞いている。そして町から走り去っていったガリガリの人影、薬の瓶を持った骨の魔物、西に逃げていった魔物。集めた情報を総合的に考えると、王家の宝を盗んだ犯人は
The scrawny street urchin. Yeah, they broke into the palace and stole them all medicine.
何かに気づいた白羽は言葉を口にする。犯人は。すると白磁が、犯人は西に逃げた骨の魔物と口早に言ってしまった。ブランもさすがは賢者白磁の推理だと言いたげに大きくうなずいている。白羽は小本と一つ咳払いをすると、町を出て西の方角へ向かうと告げ歩き出した。
And you'll see the objective cards are a distinctively different design than the rest of the cards too, which is cool. It's a nice differentiator of knowing what the different types of cards mean different things. Those are good, clear signs to help you understand what's going on with the game. Your NPCs versus your player characters, and I messed that up earlier because I changed the color of the card. Maybe she can become a player character later and that ruined the surprise. I don't know. Not sure, but the different types of cards have clear differentiating designs, which is nice. Say clear signs are different. There's a consistency. That's what I'm saying. Did we talk to her already?
やっぱり白の教団の薬は効き目が違うと言いながら、いろいろな薬をガブ飲みしている。
Game parlor.
僕と勝負しない。人懐っこそうな男の子が君たちに声をかけてきた。ここはカードゲームが遊べる遊技場。自分と遊んでくれればこれをあげると男の子は言っている。
And that was the dispeller that cost, I think it was 300 gil in the store. Looks like it's something that's going to come in handy in the future. How to play. Learn as you play. That's the best way to onboard. The goal is to use your cards to get more points than other players. You get points by arranging your cards into sets of matching cards or consecutive straights. This music's clearly different than the music of the world, I think. Sounds like it. I think it changed. And it's nice to create environments that way with sound. So another thing to pay attention to is your sound design. Okay. What mood are you trying to create here? This is a playful mood versus like a safe village mood versus out in the world, and so forth. Try making a set. When the game starts, each player is dealt their hand, one card at a time. So it's my turn. Then everyone takes their actions in turn order. You're up first. Draw 2 cards from the deck. Now you have 3 cards in your hand. Select 2 that have the same number. These these two have the same number. So that set is worth 4 points. Do I want to make a set? Yes. When you make a set, you earn points equal to the sum of the numbers on the cards. From any cards left over, you can choose one to remain in your hand. This will end my turn. Next, they'll act for the other player. This is I guess it's the game master saying they're acting for the other player. And I like that it's very clear what is going on here. It says in the corner, waiting for other players, and it's very clearly saying what's happening with this. There are some games that, like, for example, I've tried Catan, the digital version of Catan in VR and on the desktop, and when I'm waiting, there's no clear indications of what's happening. I just know I'm waiting for my turn, but then that leaves a lot of mystery and a lot of questioning as to what's happening, whereas knowing what's happening as it's happening is really helpful. I'm not saying show me their hands all the time, because I'm assuming that would be not always ideal, but at least making it clear that there's something happening and that they are doing their thing. You want that for transparency. As far as I talk about this in my best practices on the UX for XR toolkit, is for social aspects of a game. When you're playing with someone else, or even when you're playing with an AI, artificial intelligence, you want some kind of clear transparency as to what's happening. First of all, it helps you to know there's not a game error. You didn't lose connection. The game didn't freeze. You're not supposed to be doing something. You're just waiting on the other players. That gives a sense of comfort or reassurance to know that there's not something they're doing wrong, because that's where our minds go first when things like that happen. I don't have any cards that can make a set. When that happens, you have to discard all but one card from your hand. Discard until you have one card in your hand. Okay, and now it's my turn, but let me take this opportunity to explain the play screen. And again, it's very nice that they're teaching you as you play instead of teaching you all the rules up front and then making you try to remember them all as you play. This is your player card. That's where you can see how many points you have. And I like that they remind you of what's going on, because there's this whole recall, retention, and Celia Hoden goes more into it in her game, The Gamer's Brain, the Neuroscience Behind Gaming. Is there, you constantly remind and you help with the recall, and then you let them practice, and then over time you reduce the amount of reminders so that they'll remember in the long run. The sets you've made are here. You can have up to 3 sets at one time. You can see what you have left in your hand here. Okay. The pot is at the top. Any player can use these cards when making a set. The cards remaining in the deck is shown in the upper left. When this reaches 0, the game is over. And that's the play screen. Let's return to the game. I believe it was your turn. I like that it says you can only have 3 sets, and if you look at the board here, there are slots here. So this is also a reminder to you of your limitations. That would be constraints. And potentially affordances as well, because you lay things into squares. Is what you want to do. Draw 2 cards from the deck. Try making a set from the cards in the pot and what's in your hand. You can make a set with up to 3 cards of the same number. You have 3 A's, so try making a set. So it looks like A means 1 in this case. Ace is a 1. And it's continuing to teach as the other person plays, which is also nice. Draw 2 cards from the deck. By the way, you can also make sets from cards with consecutive numbers on them, but you can only make 1 set per turn. You can make a 2-card set with 3s, or a 3-card set of 2, 3, and 4. Make whichever you prefer. I'm going to do this one because that's going to give me more points. If I can do math right. You can make sets from 2 or 3 cards of the same number, or 3 consecutively numbered cards. But you can only make 1 set per turn. And you can only have up to 3 sets at a time. When you make a 4th set, you'll have to discard 1 of the sets you already have. That's it for the basic rules. There are no cards in the deck. That means this is the last turn. Last but not least, let me explain the menu screen. Bring up the menu with the escape key. There, you can look at the rulebook or decide to abandon the game. Complete a set of 2 to 3 cards of the same number from your hand or the pot, or 3 consecutively numbered cards. Looks like I only have this option. Now I am going to have to discard 1 because I have sets. So this one is the lowest value. So I'm going to get rid of that one. Coming in at number 2 is the Game Parlor Reception. Coming in at number 1 is Winfred, and they always let you win the first one to pull you in. Now we'll play a normal game. Simple. I want simple. Play the game. So you shuffle the cards to see who goes first. Okay. It makes more sense when there's more players, I guess. And I like that it let me change my mind before I committed. That is a good error prevention. handy. Oh, look, they can make another one. Oh, I actually won.
男の子は嬉しそうに遊んでくれてありがとうと言うと、約束通り薬の瓶を差し出した。
Now we're gonna go to the inn.
宿屋に行くと、白の教団の女王からの命で、君たちには特別に宿を無償提供してくれるらしい。ありがたく使わせてもらおう。ゆっくり休んだ君たちは宿屋を立ち去った。
Okay, now we're gonna continue the story and go to the west. So, wait, so that... Okay. While exploring the world and diving deep into dungeons, you will encounter enemies with which you must do battle. Your adventure will be over if everyone in your battle party is KO'd. Should your journey meet an unfortunate end, you can continue from your last save point, so it's in your interest to save often. Select data from the menu screen to save. There's also an autosave feature to periodically keep you covered. So there were feet in a circle. Here, let's just go back in. Here. There are feet in a circle at each part of the town, but then there's the circle with a slash through it for where you can't go. So this is somewhere you can go, and it seems indicating that this is your entrance and exit from town. And you can't go to a card unless it's flipped. We're trying to go west. I should have saved. These are gems. You'll need to spend them to use certain skills. You gain 1 gem whenever you take an action and can store up to 10 at one time. This icon indicates how many gems a skill costs. You can't use the skill if you don't have enough gems. Select items with the R key. Make sure you use items when you need them. While carrying many items, press the N or M key to scroll. Okay. And I can't save probably because I'm in battle. Oh, you can run away. Don't want to. Deal damage. I want to deal damage. So the problem was I was trying to click on the card to select to deal damage, but it wasn't doing what I was expecting. So I'm using the enter key, the keyboard. Some of your attacks are elemental in nature. The 6 elements are fire, water, bolt, wind, light, and dark. Cards may take more damage from the elements they're weak to, and less damage from elements they are resistant against. Knowing your enemy's weaknesses and strengths will help you choose which skills to wield to your advantage. Nice buff card. So I'm going to use gem to do this big one again. Probably overkill. But I like overpowered. What I don't get is sometimes, because her attack is 9, why didn't that deal 9 damage? That's what I don't understand. When you're low on HP, open the menu and select Own Cards to use a recovery item or to take a rest at an inn in a town to recover your HP. Yes, I want to view my cards because I want to save. Why can't I click on data? Can I not save when I'm out in the world? Let's see. This again. I don't know why I couldn't before. Chest. Nice. I just bought one. Isn't it nice that I got one in a chest? That always happens. It's 2 gems and I only have 2 gems. She's not very powerful. And it looks like when you level up, you restore your HP. It flamed last time. Let's try end. They're weak to wind. Okay.
君たちが西を目指して歩いていると、木陰に人影が見えた。 大きな荷物から旅人だと思われる。白羽は今日は暑いですねと旅人に話しかけた。旅人はさっき西の海で泳いできたところだと笑った。白羽は西の方角に逃げ去った怪しい魔物を見なかったかと。すると旅人は、西には海しかない。でもその海の先には魔物が救う洞窟、お探しの魔物もそこにいるんじゃないかと。調べる価値はあると3人は顔を見合わせる。しかしその洞窟は海の先。男は西の海岸にいる漁師に頼んでみたらどうだと言い残し去っていった。
Search the western shore for the fishermen who may grant you safe passage across the sea. I'm gonna try something, so we need to keep moving west. I'm gonna try to go somewhere I'm not supposed to. Oops. Accidentally hit E instead of W.
この先は君たちが訪れるべき場所ではない。なぜならこれは体験版だからだ。
So I like that it keeps you on course. It keeps you focused on where you're supposed to be going and steers you the right direction. Maybe you're too low level for that area. That happens a lot in games where they'll say, nope, don't go that way yet. Or some you just end up in a area that's too high and you get one shot, which also happens. I like that it's steering you back to where you should, in a safer area if you're a low level. Aw, the little fuzzy. I want to kill the fuzzy. Guess I should have used the wind on that one. Okay. That worked too. One thing I'm not sure about though is it says anytime you do an attack you earn a crystal. But at the end of every match, I don't see a new crystal show up for the last attack. Wondering if there's another time the crystal doesn't show up. So it looks. So I think I did not earn a crystal when I used a crystal. Well, nope, a new crystal just showed up. That was when the enemy made an attack. But I didn't see a new crystal show up when the last attack happened. 3 right now. I'm wondering if there's going to be 4 next time or if it stays at 3. I don't like fighting the little fuzzies.
けましたね。
I started with 2, right? Resets it at the beginning of every match. Sorry, Moja. It's a dude.
停泊する船の
Interesting
近くに
outfit.
網を引く
Fellowship.
漁師らしき男の姿が見えた。鍛え抜かれた見事な筋肉。さすがは海の男。
So this one's equal opportunity. Questionable outfits.
見とれている場合ではないと、白羽は漁師のもとへと駆け寄り、船に乗せてくれないかとお願いした。すると漁師は、この船は呪われていると言い、ブルブルと震え出した。夜な夜な誰も乗っていないはずの船がどこかに出港し、朝になると元の場所に戻っているという。漁師はそれが呪いのせいだと思い込んでいるようだ。ああ、呪いよけ薬さえあれば船を出せるのに。漁師はそう言って震えながら頭を抱えている。
Guess who happens to
白
have
羽は
one?
呪いよけ薬を漁師に差し出し、西の方角漁師は薬を受け取ると大喜びし、なぜか大胸筋を、そして薬をジャバジャバと船に振りかけている。
Okay, I want to save before I go in, because I am OCD saver. Okay. Wait, what level was I? I don't remember what level I was.
洞窟へ行くかいと漁師は尋ねてきた。
Not yet. I want to see my level.
準
What
備
I
がで
wish
きた
would
ら
have
声を
happened
か
was
けて
that
くれと答えた。
they showed my level, current level, so that I don't have to go out and look at the menu and see what my level is. Okay, we're at level 7. But we should be fine, right? Because it was level 7.
では出港しよう。漁師は君たちを船内に招き入れた。君たちはジメジメした洞窟にたどり着いた。濡れた岩肌に囲まれ、船を入り江につないだ漁師は、大陸に戻るときはここに戻ってきてくれと言った。
Okay. And again, the sound has changed, so we've got a different environment going on. The lighting has also changed. That's another thing to pay attention to is your lighting. Because I do remember... Oh, camera fixed. Okay, it's telling me I can't pan around to look at the dungeon because we're in different rules now. Okay, that's nice. It has messages clearly telling you what's going on. Yeah, that's nice. Whenever you make an action that's not valid, you should always follow up with a clear message saying this is why you can't do what you're doing right now. Very useful and helpful and a good practice. Lighting is something to pay attention to. I noticed earlier they used light to highlight things when they were talking about them in that game, that parlor card game. And they may have used it in other areas as well. I don't remember, but also another good practice. So we're We're in a dungeon now. A different feel.
勝ちましょう。
Don't want to waste crystals on her unless I really need to heal someone.
Oh.
Bones, I'm guessing wind, not sure. Didn't say weak, but don't know. Oh, nice. Magic staff. Can I equip it now? Oh, wait. I guess I have to go to setup? Who do I want to give it to? Attack power. Give him attack power. Should have given her attack power, maybe. Swap. Because he's already got power. Let's see, can we swap? Sorry, dude. Give it to her. I may or may not regret this later. Trying to use my mouse. That's not working. Oh, I'm just using my keyboard and enter. Let's see if wind worked last time. Let's see what flame does. Nope. Okay. I wish I could see the health of the one the card's covering, because now I'm having to remember what the health was. Oh, so is the shield taking off 4 damage? Is that what's happening? So it's auto-saving for me, nice.
It's
a level 30 enemy. Don't want to waste all the crystals. Or if this dude needs a bath. 2 crystals for that attack. Gonna save it. Oh good, they were weak to wind. It's useful. That's not. Weak to fire, good. I was thinking plant, maybe weak to fire. So yes, they are regaining their HP when they level up. What did we just... wait. That was an accident. I don't know what I hit. Did we decide flame was their weakness? I don't remember. No. But it still killed them. Okay. So that's one thing that I like about some games is that once you have fought a monster, you can see stats above the monster and it'll say it's weak to this or that. But this game's not doing that. It's making me remember what's monsters weak to what. So that's, again, that how much cognitive load do you want someone to have? In this case, I guess it can be a nice challenge for the game. But it is nice when you have that reminder for you. Instead of having to remember. But that may be what they wanted to be a part of the challenge in this one. That's how they handle multi-level dungeons. It's a Norman door. For those that don't know, a Norman door is one that you don't know whether you're supposed to push or pull it. Is talking about affordances and how things should afford how you use them. Should you push or pull the door? And that's what you see in a lot of doors where it says push. It has a sign on that says what you're supposed to do. That's because it's not clear what you're supposed to do.
かさず杖で白磁が白羽に感心した目を向ける中、ブランがさあ戦いで。
This is another common mental model with digital card games that I've noticed is that they will animate the card attack to the other one by hitting it, by the one card hitting the other. That's a common mental model. Let's try fire, wind, whatever that is, wind. Not weak to wind. Oh, necromancy. Looks like when a comrade dies, they gain health.
Kimi たちが宝箱に近寄ると、地鳴りのようなうめき声が、そのうめき声は直後、周囲を警戒する君たちの前に得体の知れない何かが躍り出てきた。
Three opponents this time. And a boss. Going after the healer first. Let's try... Flame on these guys. Weak to flame. Okay. It's this slime. So slime's weak to flame. Good, and the big guy to go after the boss. Ah! It's about to need a potion. Wind. Boss. Dude needs a potion now. Ah, don't kill him. Alrighty, I waited too long.
おっとご心配なく。棺桶カードを置きましたが、本当に死んだわけじゃありませんので。
Okay. I have a revivey thingy. This one. Does it revive with full HP? No. Hey. That's annoying. Flame. This dude. I should have healed first. Dude is gaining HP. Can I can't heal. Okay. Something's wrong with the selection of the mouse. Oh great, now you're gonna go after the healer. Let's use this thing on this dude. Come on, roll well, please. Oh, of course you didn't. That didn't do it. Oh, it did. Get rid of that boss. Take care of these guys. I was expecting one of the sorcerers to go down before the big dude. Oh, he should be back to full health since he leveled up.
Shiraha は魔物のムクロを避けるようにして前へ進み、宝箱の中には何の変ようやく取り戻せましたが、白磁がそう言うと、白羽とブランもうなずく。目的を果たした君たちは意気揚々と洞窟を後にした。王家の宝を取り戻した君たちは女王のもとに凱旋した。王家の宝の奪還、大義であった。何でも望みのものを言うがよい。女王は上機嫌で、君たちが褒美を辞退しようとしても、無理やり財宝をと、その時。この世のものとは思えない巨大な方向が城全体を揺るがした。方向が遠のくと同時に、謁見の間に青ざめ衛兵は息を切らせながら、たった今、城の上空をドラゴンが通過と、ドラゴン。悪しき伝説がよみがえったというのか。女王バニラは呆然と虚空を見つめている。やはり最近の魔物たちの変化は、白磁のつぶやきは女王には届かなかった。しんと静まり返った謁見の間で、君たちはみじろぎもせず、この事態に対し何か思うことでもあるようだ。ドラゴンの復活によりこの世界は一体どうなってしまうと、今回の冒険は一旦ここでおしまいだ。続きはまたいずれ。再び君、それでは私はそろそろ失礼させていただく。さらばだ。
Thank you for playing. This concludes the Voice of the Cards demo. An even bigger world and grander adventure awaits you in the retail version. So that is a very successful way to market the product. It let you play the game up to a certain point. You got through one adventure or one arc, and then it leaves you with a cliffhanger that pushes you to, compels you to want to know more. And then it says, hey, you want to buy it? And it's pushing you to the product page, yes or no, and it gives you the option. It's not forcing you to the product page. So this is something that I would want to continue to play. So it's successfully done its job of wanting me to buy the game. And it looks like there is a multiplayer game, so you can play with your friends in that game parlor version of it, which is cool. So now, one of the things I would do is let's go through, like I mentioned earlier, we were going to go through an analysis of this game to study whether do a rose thorn bud analysis of it, and that is also down in the, like I said, on my Twitch page, on the about section of my Twitch page. On the widgets, you'll see rose thorn bud, which is the method that I use to quickly, critically think about experiences. It's a good method that you can use to analyze processes, experiences, all kinds of things. You can use it for retrospectives with your team on something that you just did, like an event you just put on, or a project that you just completed, the actual process of creating the project, the pipeline that you used. What can you do? What went well? What were some things that didn't go well? How can you improve that in the future? And what are your next steps to do that differently next time? And so that's the process that is a very quick one. Again, like I said at the beginning, heuristic evaluation is what people would normally do, but since this is an evaluation that I'm just doing on my own time, then it's not. Heuristic evaluations are very in-depth and very detailed and take a lot of time and effort to do, so those are generally things that you would be paid to do, honestly. So this is a quicker version of that is gets to some of the goods and the bad things without going into a ton of detail. That's good for reviewing yourself if you're just reviewing things for erudition or whatever, or to improve processes over time. So quickly, rose thorn bud method, I'll give you some examples of how this is done, and so that you can hopefully start doing this on your own in the future. So roses are what went well, what was a highlight, what did you like. The music is successfully creating a mood. Sound effects are realistic. Let's see. Sound effects are realistic. The app that I'm using right now is called Miro, which is a post-it card. They have all different, but it's a digital whiteboard that you can put post-its on, or you can write on. You can actually write on the app with it and do different things, but I mainly use it for post-its because I'm a post-it person. So sound effects were realistic. I liked the cards sounded like they had a good weight to them, a nice cardstock, which is aesthetically appealing. Consistency in card design, types of cards, like NPCs, the player character, playable characters, locations, etc. Let's see, what was another good thing? The onboarding was good. Onboarding walked you through. Let's add, this should be in present tense. Just to make clear that this is the current state. Onboarding walks through as you play, so less cognitive load up front. I liked that the there were constraints keeping you. Constraints keep you from going in higher level areas too soon. Clear signs of where you can and can't go, like the feet bouncing, feet bounce animation. There was consistency in what was a voiceover versus not. So like MSQ narration versus helpful text or reminders. And they used current existing mental models for card games. Were there any other existing mental models that I mentioned? I don't remember. Let's see, tooltips were another thing. Tooltips detect based on controller, based on detected input. Controller versus mouse and keyboard. So that's enough roses. This is supposed to just be quick. So then some thorns are that only one controller type detected, showing wrong button. So like Sony versus be a little more clear. PS4 shapes versus other controllers that I don't know which one they're basing it off of. Other controllers with letters. It was something else that was a bad thing. This was a really good game, and there wasn't a whole lot that I noticed that was bad about it. Let's see. No auto progression at the very beginning. Did I spell wrong? Still wrong. I don't know what I'm spelling wrong here. I don't know. I didn't see it. So no auto progression at the very beginning. Oh no, it had auto progression at the very beginning. No option to turn off auto progression at the very beginning. So couldn't go at own pace for the intro. And I don't really remember a whole lot of bad things here about this. I may remember later, so I'll put them in, but the idea is that you would have at least, hopefully, one bud per Thorns. So thorns are what didn't go well, what was a low point, what did you not like. Well, I guess it wasn't clear. There were some things that weren't clear. So collection versus owned versus owned in menu, not clear. Wanted to be able to equip items from, so I'm not sure where to equip. Which menu option let you equip items versus just look at them. And so for this bud, I would say on this one, I would say just let them do it in a place. Why make it complicated? Let them access it from either menu option. We're not going to change the menu options. Collection versus own cards. Ideally, you would have one for each, but if not, you would just say for a next step, if you don't know in a solution, explore ways to make that more clear. I'm just going to draw an arrow so I don't have to write a lot. Here, make sure that one's going to that one. Auto progression at the very beginning should give options for auto progress versus manual. Okay, I don't know how to spell auto progress. Oh, that's why. Blind. Give options for auto progress versus manual progression. And pay attention to regional controls. And oh yeah, that was another thing. And controller types. There's not just, there are multiple. That are available. And then I'm gonna have two buds for this one, or I'm gonna actually, because there was another thing, the regional mental model. The controller back and select buttons were for Japan, but playing in North America. So I had to mentally, that's why I stopped playing with the controller, because I kept accidentally clicking the wrong thing. So I'm gonna actually just use the same bud for both of these, because it's like pay attention to regional controls. Or I could just split them up and make them two separate ones. This is kind of a different thing anyway. So anyway, this is basically how you do Rose Thorn Bud. You want at least one bud per thorn, and you can have more. So here, I want to finish this. Only one controller type detected. Pay attention to make multiple controller types available. Pay attention to regional controls and control types. Controls and mental models. Those are two separate things. So this would also be a place where you have questions. If you have any questions, like, is there randomization, or is it the exact same every time? Because how do you compel them to keep playing this once they finished it, or is this a one and done thing? There are lots of games out there like that. That's fine, but it's your choice which one you want it to be. And that is all I can think of right now. I think we've spent a good amount of time on this today. Thanks for watching if you've made it this far, and I will see you next stream, which the current plan is to be next week. Thanks again, and be sure to like and subscribe on my YouTube channel, and the links are in the, if you're watching this on Twitch, the links are down in the notes with the widgets in the About page. Here, I'll show you real quick. They're down here. And again, my links for reading more, learning more, my UX for XR toolkit, where you can learn all of the best practices for designing for XR. That was another question that I didn't cover on this one that I'll cover real quick. So how would we translate this into XR? Would it make sense to translate this into XR? I think that it would be a very compelling mixed reality game if you are doing the multiplayer. If you were doing multiplayer with friends around the world, it would be compelling in mixed reality and in VR. I could see both opportunities there, but you are going to have to rethink how you do the menu options, because a flat menu may not necessarily make sense for. You're wanting to think how this would play out more in the physical world, whereas you still have the benefits of the computing handling all the cards that are being laid out on the table for you. One thing you're not going to want to do that it does in the game is auto pan and zoom. You're not going to want to do that in XR. And so how would you translate in this? And if you are interested in doing some homework, that could be an exercise that you do storyboard out. How would you translate this into a VR or a mixed reality game? And that is all the time that we have today. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and be sure to follow here to continue getting these streams in the future. And feel free to join me for these streams and participate and have comments and ask questions and so forth, so that we can learn things together, learn this game design and best practices and how this translates into XR together. Thank you very much.